Yeah.
And so one thing that's really helpful right now, we're coming in another gap. So it's always nice to be mindful in the gaps. You know, they're like mini deaths, actually. So I've had lunch, maybe we've eaten something, we've had some conversation, possibly. Where's my mindfulness? How's my motivation? It's a great time to kind of check those things, and you can quickly reestablish a good motivation. And what can also be helpful is, again, sometimes we might just want to have some preliminary prayers. So we're going to do the 4 measurables right now. I'll share my screen. And again, a nice way, just middle of your day. These are just techniques so that you are like, oh, I think I'll just add the 4 measurables in. And again, we have the Buddha there in front of us, or you can have the Buddha facing same direction as you on your crown, always helping. But so for me, you run into problems during the day in your life, you know, ask the Buddha for help. Like, get used to having a resource like that. Again, it will depend on you're having more of an appreciation of the Buddha's qualities. You know, learning that through study and realizing this is really a source of refuge. This is an amazing source, the omniscient mind. Initially, it's unfamiliar to us, of course, but we slowly, you know, and then you want to check your own resources of refuge. How do they help you in the long run? Not always so helpful. We're going to people for advice, our family and friends often when we run into problems. Do they have an omniscient mind? So are you seeking advice from somebody with an omniscient mind or not? And our family and friends tend to advise us from their own agendas and their own limitations and their own attachment to us or aversion to us. So more and more, if you get used to either your teacher or somebody you really feel that deeper resource, and you bring it into your everyday experience. You know, so for me, when the plane lands safely, you know, I travel a lot, so the plane's landing safely, and I'm thinking like, thank you, Rinpoche, for delivering me safely to the center. Or, you know, I pull up in my car somewhere. Car didn't break down, didn't have any issues, no accidents, didn't run out of gas. Thank you, Rinpoche. Like, I just feel like he's always in the passenger seat with me. He's always there. I'd rather have that imprinted on my mind than all the other things that come up in our mind, like that. So thinking about the Buddha on our crown, the Buddha in space in front, thinking about all the living beings on the planet right now, struggling, so challenged. Let's send all of this out to them. Thinking in some way it alleviates some little piece of suffering, and at least this ripple goes out from us here in this space. It goes out to a part of the planet. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from the happiness that knows no suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of attachment and hatred for those held close and distant. Thank you. So what is the long question somebody asked? Thank you.
It's saying we have to take one step at a time, slowly, slowly, I hear, but also that we live in degenerating times. At some point, there will be no Buddhist teachings available, so there is some urgency as well. It takes time to meditate, study, go to retreats, and have a job as well. And my point is that after teachings, I usually feel very tired and sleepy. but there is also a feeling of urgency. Doubt if I can continue the path in the next life. This feels so confusing. Can you perhaps say something about this? Manita.
Yes, Manita. So, my feeling is life is full of choices. And we've all had many choices. Everything you're saying, Manita, is accurate as far as it's a degenerate time, is what Buddhism says. But other religions, spirituality say the same thing, you know, that we're headed towards this kind of day of reckoning, maybe you might say. So you have choices. So I had choices. And again, we all have different karmic imprints in our mind stream. I had a career. I was quite successful in the career. So I'm not saying it about I'm great. I'm just saying some people say, oh, people go to Buddhism when they're troubled. That wasn't my case. My life was quite satisfactory, doing well, but some seed ripened for me to meet Buddhist teachings. I wasn't raised a Buddhist. I was raised in something completely different. Okay? So then choices came, and I fortunately met an appropriate, authentic, genuine guru, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you know, early in my life, very fortunate, and somehow was able to not just see it as a fad, but I kept meeting him again, my choice. I kept showing up at a center and very intrigued by him. You know, fortunately had a very strong initial meeting with him. So it was very fortunate karma arising. But based on that, going back to my life, my career after a trip in Asia, thinking, well, that was fine, but now I'm going to go back to my life. Okay. But then choices come and karmic, I kept feeding the karmic seeds, the positive ones, meaning I would check out another Dharma center that attracted me for some reason, you know, visiting my friends in this city, but I made time to go to this Dharma center. It wasn't one of our centers, but I was attracted to have a Buddhist center here. So those are ways you nurture the positive seeds. If you're choosing virtue, you're trying to pick the positive path. It also meant my lessening a bit of some of the activities and some of the friends that had very, very negative influences on me. I didn't cut them out of my life. I just lessened the time, spending time doing that, not going to bars like I was, not drinking with my friends like we were doing, or going to those kind of parties as much. But part of the reason that was helpful is whatever karmic seeds were ripening, I wasn't enjoying myself as much at those parties as I used to enjoy myself. So you watch, like I was noticing, and I went to another party and there I was, and I was like, I'm kind of tired of this, like a little bit of renunciation coming. So can you watch the messages where I went, I really don't enjoy coming to these parties that much anymore. So do I have to go to them? It was a habit. You go because your friends invited. And everyone would say, oh, but this is John's house. Those are really fun parties. You're not going to miss it, are you? I mean, it was pressure, you know, it was the standard. And you go, no, of course I'll go. And you get swept along without even thinking, did you want to go? So again, we have to pay attention. Pay attention. So slowly, and then things based on that led me to certain things that the Dharma started to deepen, where I was choosing, like, let me read this book. And, oh, this is a weekend I have free, and there's a retreat going on at this center. So maybe I'll check it out. And I would go. And then through that, I met other people there. And then I met some of those people. The center was an hour and a half away from San Francisco. But then I met some people there and they lived in San Francisco. So then I had a night off and we got together. So I got together with a Dharma person now, instead of the other people that are, you know, so that's how it's a gradual, for me, it was gradual. It wasn't, I met the Dharma and like everybody else, goodbye, this is what I'm doing. And I think it's a better approach to just gradually, but you also have to feed and nourish and put the sunlight and the fertilizer into your seeds so that the right seeds are sprouting. And that was me showing up at a weekend retreat or a day long, or the one night I had free that week, I went to that center to sit. But, you know, and you keep pushing, you know, nurturing it like that. Does that make sense, Manita? Wait, where did she go?
She's nodding.
There she is. Okay. Yeah. And so slowly, and then when I was faced with bigger choices, I got this really good job at a magazine I was there 2 years. They paid me very well. And it was a good magazine, you know, it was a very spacious kind of political thing. And it was very kind of looked up to. And it was so, but I had this job and then I started to realize 6 months into it, it really wasn't set up very well, the magazine, the structure for my job and what was happening. And at that time I was getting into more Buddhist teachings, more Buddhist things. I met Lama Zopa Rinpoche a couple more times. I took refuge at that point. So decisions were coming. And then you start making choices. And so we were talking a little bit about this here at the center at lunch, is when you have bigger life decisions or any kind of decisions, the question I started using was, what's the biggest benefit in this decision? So it wasn't just about me and my comfort. What did I want? But what would have a bigger benefit, maybe something beyond me in the decisions? So those kind of decisions. One decision was, how long should I stay at this job and stay here? And I'd already been to Asia once, but now started thinking, could I go back with a little bit more Buddhist focus? Because I met friends over there that were spending time between India and Nepal, going to retreats, teachings with His Holiness the Dalai Lama, back into retreat. And I kind of saw this process, but I had to go back to the States, you know, after I couldn't stay and do that. So now I was thinking, what if I saved some money and made a decision to engage a little more deeply in something like that? And what sort of period of time? How much money did I have? Like that. So you don't need to go over to India and Nepal to do it, but you can look at the programs, let's say from this center, and say, okay, they have this course and this level and this thing, and let me set up a foundation by doing this and commit myself to that for a year or 6 months to complete this round. And then after that, I'm also going to look online and I can read some things on my own time. There's online study, but then I'm going to wait and engage in that next level of programs. And I'm going to do that. And then in between, I need to figure out a way, not only to get my daytime home practice going, but to figure out a way to engage in some of the retreats. Some of them will be group retreats. And then if I choose and can get some guidance, maybe I can have a weekend on my own and lengthen that into something longer like that. So, and the thing is, it's about your priorities. So make a look at your priorities in life right now. Is it about making money? Which some people it is. I'm not judging any of this. I really want to buy a flat. Somebody might say that's a priority. I want to have a home, a flat. I'm tired of paying rent. That's a priority for you. Okay, so that's going to involve certain things. I want to have a family. For some people, that's a priority. I want to be able to complete the master's program in Buddhism. That could be a priority for someone. I want to run a center. That could be a priority for someone. I want to start a center. I want to move to California. I'm just saying, whatever look at your priorities. Do they need any adjustment? Are you satisfied with those? You know, now some of you have families. So that has to be. Oh. But that has to be, if you have families and people around you, that has to be a factor. Now, I didn't have a spouse and children when I got into this, but I also had my parents and siblings and some very close friends. And my parents were a factor because they were very worried about what I was doing. So again, I spent time, I didn't live near them, but I would visit them. And I would be a good daughter and show them I'm still me, but I can practice Buddhism and still visit you and have fun and, you know, and still participate in some of the holidays of my pre-Dharma life as normal as possible. And slowly, you know, and they could see that based on my choices, I was happy, relatively satisfied. So they're content. And I'm also able to take care of myself. So I'm not coming back to them and going, I don't have any money. You need to pay for my apartment. I don't have a car. I can't do this. So this way they were like, okay, well, she seems to be functioning, happy. It's a different path. But so for me, it kind of went like that. And then my priorities became more and more, because I found for me, it was more worthwhile. I just wanted to do the Dharma more and more. So I made a way to create that where I started living and working, using my professional skills to live and work at Dharma centers and to help enhance the Dharma centers with those skills. Because at that time, the Dharma centers didn't have a lot of professional people running them. setting up administrative structures. Now we have a lot of professional people involved, which is wonderful. But so then that was a choice I made, which was difficult because I didn't have as much money. I did have some friends from my other life questioning what I was doing. So I didn't have that kind of support, but I had support of my Dharma community. And I just could tell when I kept checking my mind that it made me happier, this path slowly. And I also stayed very aligned with Lama Zopa Rinpoche. So I saw him almost every year, sometimes a few times a year, and went to other teachings with other lamas. And through the center, we invited all these really big teachers to come. So I got to spend time with them. And that was incredible, unbelievable nourishment. So very fortunate. So I don't know if that speaks to you, Manita, of, again, everybody has their own path. You can't do it my way, but just checking on the priorities, your certain choices, how you make those choices. Does that make sense? Does that help?
Yes, it's helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Are you married with children?
Not married, no children, no pets. I work full
Okay,
time.
so you're somebody I'm going to call free. You're free. You have the great advantage of being free.
True.
Serious, I'm not kidding. I'm serious. It's a whole different story with marriage and kids. It doesn't mean you can't practice. It doesn't mean you don't bring beautiful children into the world and teach them beautiful values and they become wonderful beings but for those without the children you're way ahead of the game. So you really have your choice of what, of building those priorities and seeing and check what makes you happier and what's possible in real. Now, granted, the Dharma path with the study and on the retreats and setting up meditation doesn't mean it's any easier. This is still samsara, whether you have kids, whether you have a dog, it's all samsara. So, but these things take effort, but check then when you make the effort, you complete a course. How do you feel? How does it work? More options to deal with the delusions in your mind. And yeah, so I hope that's helpful for anybody.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so I want to just go into some other basic things. We started looking at how karma ripens. And okay, and what I want to talk about is just some basic other outlines in karma that we have to be aware of. And how does karma ripen and things like that. So the one thing you want to know is you need certain factors for the karma to ripen in a certain way to be heavier. You need certain factors. And this is what they standardly talk about in Discovering Buddhism. But when you look at the 10 non-virtues, as we've been talking about, you have a basis or an object of the action. And I'll just use this in relation to killing. The basis is going to be a living being other than yourself. Okay, so you need these components to be all fully there for it to be what's considered a completed karma. That makes it heavier. Positive or negative, that makes it heavier. Okay. And so when one of these pieces and components is missing, the karma is lighter, like that. It doesn't mean it won't ripen, but it's lighter. Okay, so you need a basis is number one. There's 4 components. A living being other than yourself in the face of killing. Then you have an intention. Number 2, your intention. And this is what we talk about with karma. There's an intention, the movement of your mind. And this intention is made up of 3 things: a recognition, a motive, and a delusion. Okay, so the recognition with killing is I unmistakably recognize the being or the person I intend to kill. Okay, I unmistakably recognize them. My motive is I'm intending to kill them or harm them. And the delusion is usually operating under one of the 3 poisons: ignorance, desire, or anger. Desire or attachment, anger or hatred is usually operating, sometimes a combination of those. And I'll give it typical examples. I've known people who exterminated their homes because they had an insect infestation, termites or something like that. And you see, I don't know if they do in the Netherlands, in the States, they put a big bag, a tent over the house, and you have to leave your home, take your pets. Some people pack up their dishes, and they put gas into the house. It's the only way to totally get the insects out of the house. So initially I'd see this as a kid, or it was nothing, but later as a Buddhist, when I saw it and drove by a house once near my friends and saw this, for me, it was like a gas chamber. Like I remember having this thing in my heart of like, oh my God, all those beings being killed in there, like a gas chamber, very much. Perhaps the people getting gassed in Nazi Germany were exterminators in a past life. Like who knows what, even though they used different techniques at that time, I'm sure. Okay, intended. So then I decide to exterminate my house. I've been told there's no other way to rid your house of these insects, which is very tricky. Okay. And then based on the delusion of ignorance, I don't know that it's a bad thing necessarily. And I might say to myself, it's the only way we could get rid of these insects. They were eating through the wood, the house would collapse, is what the contractors told us. Okay. So there's your motivation. There's your delusion, is ignorance. I didn't know. Or ignorance and attachment. I like my house. I really want the house to remain standing. Like that. Number 3 of these components, the deed. You carry out the killing by some means. By some means. In this case, exterminating the insects. A poison is pumped into the house. You can also carry out the deed by telling others to kill for you. Telling others, like you're leading an army. You're a leader of a country. You designate that you want the troops to go in there. You get some of that killing karma. Okay. Number 4, the deed. Number 4, the components, the completion of the action, meaning the being you designated to kill unmistakably dies before you do. That's why suicide is not a completed heavy killing karma, because you die at the same time as the person, because it's you. Okay. So if any of those 4 components get interrupted, it's not as heavy, let's say in this case, a killing karma as it could be, like that. Let's just take another one, just for instance, stealing. Okay. The basis, something of value belonging to somebody else. Basis of value. Okay. My intention, my recognition is that's what I'm going to steal. That's the shawl that I wanted. Okay. My motive is I'm going to steal that shawl. There's no shawl there. I'm just pointing. I'm going to steal that book. Okay. My delusion is my attachment. I want that book. That's the book I want. I want to own that book though. I want that pair of scissors. I want that shawl. I like the color of it. Okay. That's an attachment one. One is ignorance is I don't think anything really will happen to me because I stole it. I don't think that's bad. They're not even using the book. We have excuses like that. We're not even using it. It's been sitting there for weeks on the thing. No problem. Ignorance. Okay. My deed is I steal it. Or my husband's over the house the other day and I ask him to take the book from me, like that. Or I even ask to borrow it, but with not an intention to ever give it back, like that. Okay, so you steal it, you get someone to steal. Completion is when I think the object is mine. It's now my book, my shawl, like that. So you need all those components to make it a completed, and then it's heavier, like that. But here's some other ways that things that things can be heavy. Okay, by nature, karma by its nature, okay? Killing is really heavy, much heavier than idle gossip. Killing is heavier. So just by the nature of killing, the karma is heavier. And they can say that sometimes the heavier karmas can ripen before the lighter ones, but not necessarily, okay? Depends on all these things, and so much of it depends on your motivation. Number 2, heavy by object. Heavier relating to the object. So if you're doing something negative against your guru or your parents, much heavier than just an ordinary being, because those beings, your parents gave you your life, your precious human rebirth. The guru is one totally taking care of your mind with high realizations, so they can help so many other beings. So it can be heavier. The same nature as if you do something positive for your guru, positive for your parents, much bigger positive karma imprinting in your consciousness, because they're bigger objects kind of respect. Okay. Number 3, it can be heavy by nature, the intention, nature of your motivation, okay? So sadistic killing is one of the worst things you can do because your intention is to really cause torture and horrible harm for the person's mind as well while they're being killed. You want to see them in pain. Horrible, horrible thing like that. It can be heavy based on the nature of the action. So again, more torturous harm is going to be worse than you just accidentally stepped on an insect. You didn't mean to. Very, very different outcome. Very different outcome. You know, it's one thing about disturbing your partner that you live with in your house and interrupting them and they're on a work call or something, versus it can be worse, they say, to disturb a meditator in a retreat and to keep interrupting their sessions and things like that because they're doing something perhaps more virtuous like that. Number 5, what makes it heavier is by frequency. This is where gossip is the one we do. Idle chatter, blah, 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 talking about nothing over and over, on and on about my job, and people aren't really that interested. Frequency, okay? And then the last one is that there's no opponent power. I'm not applying any, I did something, I have no regret for it. I'm actually happy that it happened if it's a negativity. I'm not interested in purifying it, I don't need to. That can leave negative imprints on the consciousness. Bert?
He raised his hand earlier, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, can you hold the questions a little bit? Yeah, thank you. Virtuous karma, okay, can also be refraining. So not only are you committing positive things, generosity, you want to buy somebody flowers, all the wonderful things you've been offering. It's just, especially if you offer it really with a positive intention that can it help me get enlightened to benefit all living beings. Then you offer from there better than I'm offering. And you know, some people give you gifts and they're going to give this to you because they're hoping you're going to give me something back. Mm-hmm. That's not positive giving. It's not really the act of generosity. But virtuous karmas are very much many things we can do, being a kind daughter or son, helpful friend, loyal friend, very good at what you do. You're very conscientious about your work. You do it very ethically, honestly. Fantastic. All this layers positive imprints in your mind, especially if you have a good motivation, a Mahayana motivation. And other virtuous karma is refraining from a negativity, refraining from a negativity. Some of you mentioned to me, you thought about doing something and then you had the mindfulness and went, I know that's a habit. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to engage in that. That's very, very powerful to undo the habit. So that's why we need our mindfulness more and more. Very, very helpful. Okay, so these are the same. Yeah. And the last thing I want to just mention, and I want to talk about how do we purify. Throwing karma and completing karma. Throwing karma and completing karma. Throwing is what rebirth it's going to send you to. The karma throws you into a certain rebirth. And the completing karma is how does that finish? What's that rebirth going to be like then? It determines one's conditions once the rebirth has been taken. Okay, so you could say that some people have very, very good throwing karma. It gets them into a human rebirth. Human rebirth, again, is optimum to become a Buddha because you have a balance of leisure and suffering in the realm. The suffering motivates you to practice. The leisure affords you the time and space to practice, to study, to do retreats, to meditate, like that, to get your mind together. Optimum rebirth. Other rebirths have too much pleasure, so no incentive to practice, like the God realms, or the lower realms, too much suffering. So there's no ability to practice like that. So you could have very good throwing karma, throws you into a human rebirth, and very, very bad completing karma. You're a woman in Afghanistan, like that. No ability to study, no ability to meet the Dharma, no freedom, like that. You could be one of Amy's pets in the past. I don't have any pets now, but I have had pets. Very bad throwing karma to come back as a cat. and very good completing karma to come back as one of Amy's cats. We had 19 feral cats when I moved to Vajrapani Institute, partially wild cats living outside when I got there as director, and they weren't catching them to get them fixed, to get them neutered. They were just making babies all the time, and sometimes the babies were dying. And so finally we had a big trap, and I kind of got on. I said, we need to catch these cats. It's not really healthy for the environment. And we did, over the course of some months, trap them. There was a lovely local rural vet that would show up in a little van, and we would drive the animal to him and get them all fixed, and then try to find homes for these animals. And some of them we were just feeding around the Gompa. So I ended up with 3 sisters that were born under one of the Gompas that were the only litter that survived of this one cat who had many, many, many cats. And then they lived with me for some years. And so one of them seemed to be a little bit more intelligent. And she had the karma to, based on her attachment to me, you had to walk through the woods for about 10 or 15 minutes to get to my office down a hill. And there was a stupa. We had a stupa at Vajrapani. It's very beautiful there. So she had the karma to follow me down, and I would get her to walk around the stupa with me. So she didn't have any idea what the stupa was. I think she was a little afraid of it. But because of her attachment to me, I'd see her follow me from corner to corner. As I'd go around the stupa, she'd look and she'd see me, and then she'd run to me. And then I go to the next corner, and then she'd run to me. So that was the way I got her to go around the stupa. So who knows what imprint? It's supposed to be a very good imprint, whether they know it or not, from the old story of the fly that landed on the kaka in a moat around a stupa. And as a result, it went around the stupa, and that created it to become a monk in a future life or something, right? So who knows? Who knows? It was the least I could do. But your pets, you can say mantras to them. You can, what did I just see? Thank you. One of you, we started, had a cat on her shoulder.
Yeah.
Was it Debbie? Yeah. So again, that cat maybe heard some of the prayers we were doing in the beginning. Those are things you can do for your pets. Say mantras to them. There's obviously not in here, they can't study. As you know, I know as intelligent as you think your dog is still in a lower realm. You have to really study the dog's life to see that they're not really free to go out when they want or to eat when they want. They're not studying Dharma generally. I know my cats seemed very evolved when I would meditate, and they would, pretend, but but those are ways we can help a little bit the animal realm, the animals we interact with. When I'm taking an insect outside, trapping it, I don't want the spider in my place, trapping it, you can say mantras to it. Sometimes the medicine Buddha mantra is very helpful for animals, and you can learn that and say some mantras, and at least it gets a little bit of an imprint like that. So I want to talk about purification, and we're going to do a short Vajrasattva practice. Some of you are familiar. And let me hang on one second. I just want to, I want to show another video of Rinpoche that I think we had. Do you have that on your?
I have the one that we had yesterday. We're 5 minutes left. Is that one?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
Can we
okay.
show some of that to the end? I think it goes to the end of that. So I want to just show a little bit more Lama Zopa Rinpoche talking about everything comes from the mind. And this should be from the mark-offs I have, Sylvie. I have 28 minutes to the end, but I also have.
It's a bit less than that.
Okay.
I will go back a little bit from.
Yeah,
what
go
we
back
had
a little bit
yesterday.
further. That's fine. And we'll watch about 5 or 10 minutes of this. And let me see, I did make some, so I just want to, before we start it, because I made a few notes about this of Rinpoche. Okay, here we go. So once again, I just want to refer you to remind ourselves, we have an appearance that comes up. And I'm even going to say even appearance of another person. Let's explore this. Another person's walking towards me right now. I have an appearance. Okay. The mind labels. Okay. My mind immediately labels. And if it's somebody difficult where you have a negative karmic seed rising, let's think about it. Why is that karmic seed rising? I don't know. Karma is so intricate. I have no idea why that particular seed could have been a very strong negative seed, suddenly rose. And in relation to this person, this object in front of me, okay? And I immediately label difficult, challenging, I don't like, enemy, get away from me. Immediately comes from my merely labeled difficult, challenging person coming towards you, okay? And the next moment, what appears to your consciousness, not merely labeled person like that, not merely labeled, but what appears to my consciousness is a truly existent, difficult person out there. That's a hallucination. That doesn't exist that way. I've just made a big mistake. Now I act on that mistake. Now I say something really rude to them. I quickly move away from them. I go and I tell my friend, I hate this person. They're a jerk. Don't let them in. I mean, but this is our responses. This is what we do in subtle ways and in gross ways. So once again, appearance, a labeling from my mind, right? Playing back the next moment, coming back to me as inherently existent, truly existent. Mistake, right? Why? Contaminated mind. That's all. Limited mind. Okay? A mind misknowing reality. So all it can do is play back to me as an inherently existent being there. Okay? Then I respond from there. And then I hold them to be inherently existent, truly existent, person, negative, jerk for all time. Okay? And then my mind constricts. So not peaceful. Okay? So let's analyze a little bit. Let's go back. There's an appearance, karmic negative seed ripens. Again, everything comes from the mind. This person comes from my mind. Okay? They're showing me my mind. Okay? Now let's analyze with emptiness. Okay? You've got a fleshy thing like this. Sometimes there's material here. We call that hair. There's two circles. Seriously, you have to analyze. You analyze on your cushion like this, so that when you're in front of them, you're going, okay, that's right. You have to analyze again and again on your cushion, because in front of you, they just appear like jerk. When that negative karmic seed comes, it's right here. I don't like this person. Get them away from me. Threatening. I'm afraid. I don't like them. They always interfere. They're always a problem. Okay. But all I've got is the fleshy oblong thing, some hair, two circles with color. I got this. And then it's interesting. This opens. There's a hole here. This opens and sound comes out. Okay. Then you've got a longer torso, hopefully covered in some sort of cloth. Okay. And I've got 4 appendages. There's your person. That's the raw information that's there. It's really what's coming toward me. Okay. But then I got this negative karmic seed that jumped up. So what that did is it projected onto that something less than is there, underestimates the reality. That's what anger and hostility do. That's what anger and hostility and negativity and hatred do. Okay. It underestimates the reality. So I'm not seeing clearly. Why? Because I have a contaminated aggregate of my mind. Because I haven't realized emptiness. That's all. I'm not a bad person, but it causes me to see things in a certain way because everything comes from my mind, my karma, interrelated with my mind. So now the person's coming toward me, okay? And I'm projecting all this negativity like that. So this is a space right there, right? And then this opens with this person. And then the sound comes, all that comes out is sound, first of all. That's really what's first happening. Because of the negative imprint, negative seed ripening, I interpret that sound as it comes into my ear, the organ connected to my body that connects and functions because of my auditory sense consciousness in my mind that allows me to hear. But because it's in my mind, it's affected by the negative karmic seed ripening. So I interpret, again, my experience of the sound is less than pleasant. I don't like what they're saying. I can't believe they're saying that. How dare you? Okay. So what I want to do is I'm just observing that. Can I observe it more calmly and just look at, wow, negative karmic seed ripening. How interesting that I'm interpreting the sound as negative. That sound doesn't exist at all like that. The way it's playing back to me is truly existent. Doesn't exist at all like that. So can I just right now take a deep breath in and a deep breath out? I still can watch them coming toward me and recognize all the discomfort going on around me based on simply coming from my mind from a negative karmic seed. And I can actually start to even give myself a little space with maybe another inhalation and another exhalation, which might allow me to at least, and I can maybe that's the best I can do. So I'm at least trying. Like I'm not going to say that I'm comfortable yet, but I'm, you know, at least can project a little pleasantness. Now, it's not that I'm being false. I'm practicing. I'm practicing how I'd like to be. I'm at least practicing not adding more hostility to this thing that might fuel that person to be a little more charged. This is all we can do.
Yeah.
This is what we do. And then later I'll go back and sit on my cushion and go, oh, I can't believe she showed up for the retreat. No, really. I mean, but you say this and you go, okay, so what's the problem? What's the problem with her? What is it? And then you go back and you do your exercises. Just like me, she wants to be happy and doesn't want to suffer. You know, just like me, you know, happiness evades her, just like it evades me. It escapes from her. And just like me, she suffers inescapably because it's samsara. And you start really analyzing that person, you know, and then if it's a person that everybody finds difficult, could be your boss or somebody shows up at the center that everyone finds difficult. What's it like to be them? We had a retreater. Every time she showed up, nobody liked her. Every center I went around the world, nobody liked her. You know, His Eminence Ling Rinpoche's attendants had trouble with her. You know, didn't want her to come. You know, I found that out from him, you know. So even that, like so what's it like to be her where she shows up and everybody's like, oh no, it's her. That made me sad, made me really have compassion for her. You know, I was able to connect with her more, you know, really spend, and you need patience. Okay. But here's the other thing is we want to get to a place. We have to understand we need those people because they show them my mind. She helped me practice patience more than anybody else. She'd come to the center at the most horrible time. She'd need to have a meeting with me and ask me all these questions. The worst time for me, always. She'd always find me at the worst times. Right. So I'd have to be like, you know, okay, let me practice here. This is a great practice. Everybody else is easy. I'm kind of just sitting around with them. But with her, I have to really, okay, you know, this is a sentient being. I signed up in the morning for all living beings, and that includes her. So, and she would show me my mind over and over. She would help me practice, you know, and it was a great exercise for me. So these people, these people are precious. We need these people. So can we start to see them that way? Oh, great. You see, here they come. Difficult person. I've just underestimated what's really out there. Buckle your seatbelt. The ride is beginning. You know, how am I going to do? Sometimes you're on that amusement park ride and you get tossed. Sometimes your head is whipped back. You know, it's like that. You go, why? You know, and there were times when I'd say to her a little more strongly, I need to go to the session right now. Like we need to finish up. Like, or, you know, okay. You know, there were times I noticed I'd lose my patience. You know, so again, and then I want to refrain from my mouth to say anything very rude, and that's the practice, right? Does everybody get it? Understand? This is our practice. This is just practical how we're going to engage with this. Okay. So just looking, and this is the thing, again, when that data is coming towards you, when that person, we're labeling person on them, okay? But what's interesting is they're not inherently like that bad, because somebody out there likes them and finds a good quality in them that I'm not seeing. That's how they're not inherently like that all the time. You have to keep checking and keep looking at that and working with that. Are we communicating? We're making sense? Okay.
It's beautiful because they say when your bodhicitta is not a real, then you have no love for only one person, right? No.
It's the trial of bodhicitta if you leave out one person.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. No, so, and again, the emphasis is on the all. It's for all living beings. So, but we often leave people out, you know. So that's the main thing. So then just think about it. The label and the label arising from the mind, and then the immediate, Rinpoche says the next second, it comes back to us. It appears to us as inherently existent. And then Rinpoche says, it's total opposite view of this one. He says it again and again. It's a total opposite view of that. It's not inherently existent. It's not truly existent. The way it appears to you is totally opposite of how it really exists. Person or thing. It appears not merely labeled by the mind, right? Doesn't appear merely labeled by the mind. We think there is a hallucination truly existing. There, that's what we think. And he emphasizes there. He says, but it's a gross hallucination there. Okay. And then he says, there's nothing there that does not come from your karma. There's nothing there that is not merely labeled by your mind. So there is something appearing to you. Okay. And ordinary people, there is something appearing to you existing from its own side. Okay. Existing by its own nature. That is a total projection of your ignorance. Think about it. You have to think about this deeply. That is a total projection of your ignorance. So you have an issue going on around you, the guy with the bike, whatever you're talking about. Then go back to your cushion, to your meditative space, and you have to keep saying, wow, total projection of my ignorance. Okay. And from that, all the negative emotions arise. Okay. Including more imprints of ignorance. Okay. But if you, and Rinpoche goes on to it, if you look at it from the reality of wisdom, from correct view, then you see it's totally false what's out there, totally empty of inherent nature, doesn't exist at all out there like that. Okay. So let's listen to the video. Thank you, Sylvie.
Just there was a comment by Vivian that this person you're mentioning about could be someone with functioning autism because they don't feel why they're not liked and they don't feel like how
That's
to
right.
live.
That's
So-
right. And another thing to add in is you don't know with the neurodiverse you don't know what somebody's situation is, period, whether they're neurodiverse or not. You don't know if they have financial ruin. They showed up at the center, their wife just left them. They have illness, their kid is sick. You don't know what's going on for somebody. So we all have some sort of delusional disorder, right? Which is what my brother-in-law died of. It's a serious mental illness. But on one level, when he was diagnosed, it took them 2 years to diagnose him. He was English, and they finally settled on it, I think, in England or in New York, I can't remember. But the thing is, when he was diagnosed, I was living at Vajrapani Institute, and some of my family met him, and some of the center met him. And so then I said to my friends at the center, and I said, they're calling it delusional disorder. And it is a formal mental illness. And then there was this pause, and we were sitting around the staff. And then I said, I guess we all have that to some degree, right? Just not to the degree that he had it, but we all have that to some, we all suffer from some delusion, and it causes me to see something differently than the way Sylvie experiences it, like that. And sometimes it's very positive where we get attached, and sometimes it's very negative where we have aversion, like that.
What Alan Wallace also says, we all have obsessive compulsory disorder and ADHD. And it's just different levels.
It's different levels and different, that's right.
Buddha's mind, we all kind of.
Yeah, and when the Buddhas look at us, and one of my friends was saying, we were sitting in India, Tushita, one summer, it was monsoon, and out back, and there's like the cows had made caca, and then all the flies come to the caca. Flies love that, So we're sitting there and we're looking at the flies, and then he said, yeah, that's the way I think the lamas look at us. Like we're flies on caca. Yeah, we love our caca, meaning our distractions. We are so attached, and they're going, oh my God, she needs to watch another horror movie. Really? Like reality, samsara isn't horrific enough. So you need, but whatever we're attached to, oh, she needs to buy a bigger house, and he needs to make more money with this, and he needed the fancy car, and none of that stuff is a problem, but our attachment to it is. Attachment to, and they look at us, and then they're so loving and compassionate. So, oh, okay. Right? So they love us through all of our mental illness and mental imbalances. It's because they're desperate for us to get free. That's their whole role. That's all they want. That's what brings them bliss, more and more bliss. That's where they operate from. So we want to get to that point. We operate from there. Just that urgency to relieve others of their suffering and bring them to ultimate freedom. Wonderful. Yeah.
opposite view to this one. Just now, just a second before your mind immediately, you know, beautiful this, blah blah blah, beautiful this, then, but you know, appeared here. So you see, so so, then appeared, and you see that. Look at that. But now you see the way they appear to you, complete opposite to the second before your mind immediately, you see. Total opposite that. It exists from the side. Never came from your mind. Never came from nothing to do with your mind. Not labeled by mind. None of that. What's that? Not me, the special, not merely labeled by mind. Of course, this there, not merely labeled by mind, you see. So there's hallucination there. Then not even there. Besides that, not labeled mind at all. Not labeled by mind, by your mind at all. This hallucination, this where grows hallucination there. You see. So what Rangjuba says, Rangjuba's point of view of true existence, or the true existence, you understand? Hallucination. So say about that, hallucination. Total hallucination. Okay? So that. So so there's nothing. So there's nothing. There's nothing there. That is not come from your karma. Not view your karma. That's not made labeled by your mind. There's nothing there. You see. There's nothing there. So, so that means you see something appearing to you, appearing to you, existing from its own side, outwardly existing. True existent. Then you go final existing by existing by its nature. Not merely. However, this you see, total projection of your ignorance. You see. So that's the truth. That's the reality. You see. Truth. So you see. So this belief came from outside. So total belief this is there. So from there, the attachment, anger, all the negative emotions arises. Ignorance. You see, all the negative emotions arises, okay? Including ignorance. Concept true existence. But if you think, but if you look at it according to reality, reality of wisdom, not reality of ignorance, not reality, not what ignorance believe, real, not that. But God, wisdom, see, correct understanding, no? Correct view. So see, so as I mentioned before, see, view karma. Then just now your mind imputed, meaning imputed. So see, you put this label, beautiful laws, so you see, then So you have this, so you have this view, okay? Then you see, you see that way, appear that way, you see that way, and then you see, then when that happens, then you see, another one again, another one, your mind, your ignorance, projected or decorated or mental fabricated. You see this true accident, okay? So you see, so see, so especially the third one, especially the third one, makes you to see it's totally false, hallucination. You see, so while you are aware of that, it's empty, it doesn't exist at all there. So that is it. So anyway, so if you think you see impermanence, those in this teaching, the impermanence part, you see what to do, like clouds, like lightning, in the impermanence. So then you see then you see mind is so peaceful. Your mind, heart, so peaceful, becomes so peaceful, tranquil, find satisfaction, great peace. You're going to that. There's no question about, everything comes from your mind, or the different ways. Then last one, this big hallucinations come from your mind. So the reality is empty. It is empty. Okay. So no question about that. What a great peace brings your mind. The mind is total control. So whatever externally happening around you, somebody criticizing, somebody praising, somebody what, whatever is happening around, your mind is in great peace. You see this way? It's empty. So it's all this anyway, so like that. It doesn't bother you. So anyway, see. So that this, if we're able to keep our mind peace, control and peace, in a great peace is like this, undisturbed by delusion. Then you are able to keep your vow. You're able to keep, if you have taken vows, Patimo's vow, what is about, then you are able to protect your vows with a great peace of mind, to see, control mind. Then you are able to keep your vows. You see, no harm, no harm from your negative thoughts and delusions. Along with maintain your delusions, harm, break, degenerate your vows. Along with that, then external object. You see, it makes your delusion makes external objects. You see. these after discriminating this and all that, you know, putting those labels and then putting that's true, real, then you see, so then being attached to that, and also ugly like that, then anger rises. And then also ignorance rises it in different way. See, so anyway, this looking at it, you know, the independent, you know, true extent, ignorance rises. Then also, what is impermanent? Looking at the permanent, you know. No, so that's ignorance rises. So see, then you see, so the person's mind, the supposed to a person's mind rises, and then you see, then you see, lose the vowels, you know, that, there's a, the contact with this object, then makes lose vowels, degenerative, bright, sort of that. The other one, but only, see, it doesn't allow mind is in peace, undisturbed, continuously, you know, free from these negative emotion thoughts. Then you see, able to, there's no obstacle for your vow. See? So no obstacle for your vow. See, like that.
Yeah.
Well, your mind can stay in the eye of the storm if you can manage. You know, in the eye of the storm, it's calm.
Right. That's right. So the more realizations, the more, and Rinpoche is also saying at the end, keeping your vows. So some people have taken refuge precepts, a type of vow, but smaller than a vow. But when you engage in the path and say, I'd like to be a Buddhist, you know, you can go through a refuge ceremony, take refuge. And then you, on that, would build bodhisattva vows. And also with refuge, you could choose to take lay precepts, those 5 precepts I mentioned, not harming or killing, no stealing, no lying, no sexual misconduct, no intoxicants. You could take a few of those, keep those well, and then you build on it with bodhisattva vows. There are 18 bodhisattva vows, root bodhisattva vows, and then there's 46 auxiliary bodhisattva vows. You would learn, it sounds like a lot of vows, but you would learn those. Most of them you're keeping anyway. They're things you're already living. You build on that tantric vows by having a tantric initiation or empowerment that has to be done by a qualified teacher who has the ability to do that. And what happens is we think of the vows as restraining us, that then I can't do something, you know, as Westerners, but the vows actually liberate you, they free you, because they're designed to restrain you from negative behavior and enhance your positive qualities. So when you really understand that, but you have to learn the vows to keep them well, they're designed to automatically get you enlightened if you keep them all well, like that. But mainly Rinpoche is also just saying is to continue to practice, to not believe in the hallucination, to realize it's a hallucination you are projecting from a misknowing consciousness, a consciousness that doesn't realize emptiness directly. Like that's, we have to keep reminding ourselves of that, thinking of that. So Rinpoche has a number of videos with subtitles that he made almost every day of the initial quarantine of COVID from Kopan Monastery. And again, you know, some of them repeat themes and things, but you can watch parts of them and you get this, you know, feeling over and over. We have to constantly watch these videos of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, other teachers, because it's a different way of thinking based on some of the things we're streaming, that we're watching, that take our mind, to a different realm, to a different experience. And then we have our everyday lives that are taking us also to a different experience that isn't necessarily a world that's focused on getting enlightened to benefit all living beings. So it's, helpful for me, having a close connection with Rinpoche. And when I see the videos, and some I've watched over, and we were watching some recently at Kopan during the retreat and during the meeting. And at one point, one of my nun friends turned to me, and it was just so endearing. And the video was very good quality, and Rinpoche's face was quite big, and it felt like he was in the room. So she turned, both of us looked at each other and we said, it's like he's here. I very much felt him there at the meeting and in the retreat, and because his holy body is being preserved there at Kopan as well. So it just feels like the energy, and it's just a very blessed place. So again, we can learn and create that here, Maitreya Institute, and then you can create that in your own home based on your level of practice, and all of it is just can be kind of the same thing based on how we view it. So does that make sense? Any questions on that or anything we've talked about today? And then we're going to do Vajrasattva practice. Anything else, everybody?
Maybe just for those of you who don't know, we have some of the salt.
Mm. Mm.
God bless them.
The salt that is used to preserve Rinpoche's body at Kopan. They have to refresh the salt, and so that's distributed to different centers. And some of it is in here in this little stupa, and also in the stupa which is there on the altar. So some cells of Rinpoche's body actually.
Do you have any packets of salt here that?
I can bring next time.
Okay.
Actually,
No.
we have a lot of salt in Luna to put in the big stupa in Luna. So
From Rinpoche's body,
yeah,
because a question I have is whether, so what they did is, this is unusual, and people don't often know what that means by preserving the body. So usually Buddhists, a lot of Buddhists are cremated, and we've heard of that, and we know what that is, and non-Buddhists are cremated as well, and we're kind of familiar with that in our things. Some people bury people as a thing, and in Tibet they do sky burial and things like that. So the organization was, or Venerable Roger and some of the people taking care of Rinpoche's body when he passed were advised to preserve his body, that it could be better because there's so many students from around the world who couldn't come initially when Rinpoche passed to pay respects. But because there's so many students, it could be used as an object of worship that could be very holy. And sometimes the very high beings like Lama Tsongkhapa also was preserved. And there's some other beings like that. He was preserved initially in Tibet before the communist Chinese invaded. Then they eventually did a cremation to students because the communists weren't very good with the body. And I think they tossed it in the river. The legend was it floated upstream. That was the power of Lama Tsongkhapa's body, our patron saint. So with Rinpoche, we were advised. And so what they do is they do a preserving. It's been 2 years now in salt and, whatever, I don't know the exact procedure, but they've done this with a few lamas that I've known. And what they do is then they change the salt once a week or twice a week. They have to change the salt, and they take the salt out, and they made these little packets that are easily distributed to anybody that's in the room and can take some packets. So what you can do is, what I've heard with the salt is you can put it in stupas and things like that. But if you're sick, you can eat a little bit of the salt. If you have the faith like that, she's kind of making a face like, I'm not going to eat the salt. Okay. So probably maybe not so much benefit for her, but if you have the faith or you have a connection, you feel you put a little bit, and really feel like I want to. And I do know some people that had a rash and had like a mosquito bite. They did rub the salt on it, and the next day it was totally fine. So again, a lot of this comes from faith, but those are other things. That's why I was saying, if you can sometimes even just a kernel you deliver can give to people that would like, and they can take home and use. You could probably put in water and then use that water to bless things. So it just depends on your belief system, but that's kind of what they're doing. And I find it really amazing that we fortunately have these videos of Rinpoche, and thank you to Lizette, and thank you for Sylvie we got it with the subtitles now, and a lot of them in our education department and their team has been working so brilliantly on getting all these things with subtitles that I'm using more and more in retreats. It's really helpful for people to continue to feel that lineage from Rinpoche of what his teachings are still very much alive and incredible guidance. I never met, I've many lamas, many teachers. I've never met one that was, in a sense, that desperate to get us free. Like, was just try, you know, any positive method to really, was this, you know, quite strict teacher, quite intensive many times. And more recently, in November, I was in Dharamsala teaching, and then a friend of mine, who runs a center at Tushita, a German non-venerable Kunpen, she was going to go to the Tibetan doctor, and she kept telling me there was this great doctor who was a Geshe, and you know, there's always new Tibetan doctors around there. And I've gone many times and taken Tibetan medicines, have had a good result. But I didn't. So finally, at the very end of my visit, she's like, let's go today. I'm going down. And I decided to go, and I met this doctor. So this Geshe. And then he, you know, they take your pulse and they advise and different things. And I really, really liked him. I really felt, so he has to speak through a translator. And the translator is also a doctor, this female doctor. So he's kind of telling me what to do. And he gave me medicine. And then I was about to do a month of Nungnes, this fasting retreat. So you only can eat every other day. So you have to take the Tibetan medicine. And I said, is it better that I wait till I finish the month of Nungnes, then take every day? Or should I take every other day? Which sometimes Tibetan medicine, maybe it doesn't have the best result. So then he said to me, well, the Buddha made a dispensation that you can take the medicine even if you're fasting, you know, which would require me to take water. And Rinpoche has always been really strict about it. And I just, with Nungnes, I don't eat or drink on that day that you do it. I don't even take, unfortunately, I don't have to take medicine that I absolutely need for my health. So I explained that to him, and I said, I know that the Buddha has said that, but I don't feel comfortable to take the medicine on the fasting days. I said, my teacher was pretty strict, and I don't feel like I would do that. And then he goes, well, who's your guru? And I said, Lama Zopa Rinpoche. And then he went, oh, like with this great respect, like, oh, you mean him? Oh, like, you know, so a lot of times when you say that to people who go, oh, it's him, you know. And so I feel like we have this incredible lineage from Rinpoche, and very authentic, and his urgency, his incredible urgency to get us free, and all that he did. And sometimes students have said to me, they've asked him for practices, or they didn't ask him for lifetime practices. And some now regret that because he's gone, but some of them have these practices. And some people said they were afraid to ask him, And I understand that, because they were afraid they would get, you know, laden with like tons and tons of things. But if it's designed to get you free, what's the problem? Right. So again, I was even thinking of Manita asking about, you know, and so this is a tricky one, but more and more in this day and age, because the world is kind of a mess. What are we doing? You know, what do you want to do? Do you want freedom with a small f, or do you want freedom with a capital F? Like, do you really want to be free? Or do you just want to be relatively free, and then your suffering comes up, and then you die again, and you're not happy with that, and you lose your loved ones, and then you go back around and do it all over again? You know, when are we getting exhausted of it? So this is somebody that wanted capital F and was moving us in that direction. And anyway, the way the world is, I'm just feeling like, what are we doing? You know, why don't we just get down and do it like that? So anyway, it's my own trajectory. So, but I feel like we just don't have any more time to waste, is how I feel. Is how I feel. So, and I'm not the best practitioner, so, but I'm trying, but I just feel like, go for it. The rest of the stuff just falls away. It doesn't make any difference whether you have that chair in your living room or this chair, and you know, all the things that we spend so much time focusing on. Something to think about. Yeah. Okay, so we had a question. CB, I think, had a question.
Yes, thank you, Venerable. I was wondering if you could go over again the three components of intention, recognition, motivation, and delusion. I think I'm pretty clear on motivation and delusion, but not on recognition.
Yep. So this is the way karma ripens, okay? So let me take another non-virtue. Divisive speech, how about that? Okay. again, the way karma can ripen is with divisive speech, you need a basis of who am I going to perform it with, and it's 2 or more people. They can have a good relationship or bad relationship, doesn't matter, but it's just 2 or more people I'm engaging with. Okay, I'm going to use my speech for this one. Then the intention has 3 components, is what he's asking about. And the recognition is, in this case, I have an unmistaken recognition of the parties involved and their relationship and feelings for each other. Like I'm going to use my speech to say something that could drive a wedge between them. And my recognition is I'm coming into a room right now. These are the people I'm going to speak to. These are people that seem to be managing okay, you know, like that. So that's the recognition. I don't know, and I'll give you another thing. Harsh speech, the recognition would be you want to correctly identify the person you're about to insult. And with lying, I'm just using speech as an example. My recognition is I recognize that what I'm about to say is untrue. And let me just go back to killing for a minute. My recognition is I recognize unmistakably the person I'm about to harm or kill, or the insect, or the animal. Stealing would be I recognize unmistakably the object I'm about to take. Sexual misconduct, I recognize unmistakably, I have no doubt that I'm going to engage in sex right now, or have an unmistaken recognition of the object. I'm going to engage in a sexual act with this person who's involved with somebody else. Does that make sense? Okay. And then my motive in these situations, sexual misconduct, is I'm intending to engage in a sexual act. And I'm going to say an improper sexual act because it's with somebody that has a partner that doesn't allow them to have an open relationship, that doesn't want them to be with someone else. With lying, my motive is I intend to lie and deceive someone. Divisive speech, I intend to cause a division or disunity. That makes sense?
Yes.
And then the delusion is usually one of the 3 poisons.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Everybody else okay? Okay, any chance hearing about Rinpoche's incarnation? So, what I would just say about this is we have heard at the recent meeting, the CPMT meeting in Ekopan, an announcement was made that His Holiness, the FPMT board checked with His Holiness or Venerable Roger, and His Holiness said that the reincarnation, and there wasn't a letter that went out, I think Maitreya sent it out as well, all the centers did, that somehow Rinpoche is, what my memory is, correct me if I'm wrong, Rinpoche is in existence, taken rebirth in Nepal, is the crux of what we heard. Now, we don't know when, we don't know how old or where, and there has been a committee that's designated, I believe, of 6 people that will conduct a search. And that's all we've heard. Now, what we would do is we still do the request to return, the prayers and things, because I think it helps maybe smooth the way for that rebirth. There's a couple of us, a very close Geshe friend of mine, we have a kind of similar view of, I feel like they shouldn't rush that process. And partly it's because there's some tokus that we would say, or the Yangtze, which is the young reincarnation that's found, it's designated as the appropriate person, is when they're found very young, they never get to kind of experience a normal childhood. They're recognized right away, and the students are very eager. Rinpoche had thousands of students. So a lot of them are very eager to find this person, and, you know, and I hear people talking about it. And then what happens is the person will, if they're allowed by their family, the families always ask permission, can they go to the monastery? And the monastery in this case, most likely would be Kopan. And then he'll be raised there, go to school there. And the family can come and visit. Sometimes one of the family members will live with them. And then he'll engage in the school to a certain degree, and then eventually probably go to Sarah Monastery and finish his PhD there. And then complete all the studies associated with that. So it can be nice, I think, for these children, these special children, to have some time just as in their own childhood, and they can still go to school, they can still go to the monastery unrecognized, even though few people may know it's them, and they're going to show their qualities pretty quickly, but at least let them excel. They can just be a good monk or nun and excel in that way until finally a little later they'll be like, this is the reincarnation. And because they start getting showered with all these gifts, and it's all, and everybody's coming to visit, and I just think it's a lot of pressure. So that's just my own limited view, and this Geshe agreed, like he had the same view, and it's just a lot. And sometimes I think it's a very hard, can be a very hard rebirth for the child to be, you know, having close relationship with His Eminence Ling Rinpoche and His Holiness, His Eminence Song Rinpoche, knowing them since they were very, very young. It's a lot. It's a lot of, you know, yes.
Yeah, what they did with some of the Rinpoches there now is they sent him to Australia for 4 years. Nobody would recognize him, but he went to school there. He's actually from the movie. What's it called?
Yeah, that's the reincarnation of Geshe Lama Konchok.
Yes.
Konchok Rinpoche.
Yeah.
So his particular main attendant decided to take him to Australia and had a situation. And also His Eminence Song Rinpoche had 6 months in California and was raised with a Buddhist family to go to a Montessori school so that he could learn English. And there's a gap in their education where they have a little bit of time to do that. And a couple of them felt that they would do that. So Geshe Zopa took him to Australia and they raised him there, but that doesn't always happen. I mean, they're also known to be special there, but sometimes it can be okay. Sometimes it's hard too. You know, I used to talk to Song Rinpoche when he was in California, and it's a challenging system, the Toku system. It doesn't always work for people when you think of, but it's how the Tibetans do it. And sometimes it's worked out very well. You know, when you look at His Eminence Ling Rinpoche and who he's become, and His Eminence Song Rinpoche, they're a beautiful manifestation, but their lives have not been hard when you talk with them. And at one point, you know, His Eminence Ling Rinpoche had 5 more years left of the Geshe program before the tantric studies. And I was meeting with him, and I can't remember how old he was then, 20, 25, something like that. And then I said, so Rinpoche, how many more years left? And he said 5. And I said, and then I just kind of blurted out, and I said, well, that's not so bad. I said, that's not so much longer. And he said, you think so? Like, you know, he just, like, it was just 20 years of study of, now a lot of us, you know, we go to school for, we've got a primary education of 12 or 13 years. Generally, that's what I did. But, you know, then I went higher education, I had another 4 years. Then you sometimes have additional years. So we've been also doing it, but it's a different type of study. And so he, you know, said, you think that's okay, just 5 more years? Like, so I think it's, and they really try to maintain ethics, and some of them have wonderful attendants who really, you know, it's hard work for the attendant to keep them, and for the ones to keep them in robes. That's very difficult. Many have disrobed. Many Tokus have disrobed. So it's a challenging path, but they can become, you know, and maintain that mindset of who they were before, some high level realizations, we hope. And it's quite special like that to know these beings. So that's all I know about the reincarnation, what we've heard. I myself figured I was hoping Rinpoche would be born in Nepal personally. I just felt that. I know for his sister who lives on the mountain, she was hoping that, and I think that makes it a little easier for the family. And we don't know where in Nepal. I have some of my own little ideas, but that doesn't mean anything. So we'll hope that we can create a cause that I always pray every day. And His Eminence Ling Rinpoche mentioned this, you pray for Rinpoche to return, and I say in the most optimal rebirth, and with a very spacious family that will be very happy to have him go to the monastery, to Kopan Monastery, and that he can complete his entire education in a very positive way. And then His Eminence Ling Rinpoche added, with sharp intellect, okay, and to fill the shoes completely, because Rinpoche's shoes were enormous. So to fill the shoes completely, and I would add to then resume his position as spiritual director of the FPMT and of all of our centers to guide all the infinite students to enlightenment in a similar or even better way than the previous, incarnation, if that's possible, like that. So we have to do our practices to maintain that, to make that happen. It's our harmony at all of our centers, among all of our centers, among the students. You're doing your own practice. If any of you got instructions from Rinpoche, following the advice really well, like doing the practices that Rinpoche advised you to do. And if you're not clear and you never ask directly, Rinpoche has all kinds of advice online of how to set up your practice, start there. It's all really authentic, and you can create your own connection with Rinpoche like that. So His Eminence Ling Rinpoche, I'm quite close with. I didn't know him in his last life. I met him when he was 2. So, and what you cultivate that relationship, so you might meet Lama Zopa Rinpoche when he's 2 years old or 5 years old or 10 years old, and you can cultivate that relationship from now on. You don't have to have met him in his last life like that. So let's now that we've heard all these things about karma, I hope you have some better understanding of how to a little bit work with your day, work with your daily life. But when negative things have come up, and because we're ordinary beings, we've created a lot of negativity. It's just normal for ordinary beings. So we want to clean away the negativity of our body, speech, and mind as much as we can. And one of the most effective ways is to do it with a practice called Vajrasattva practice. There is, no, that's a white Tara, isn't it?
This one.
Yeah, so we have a Vajrasattva. We're going to have it on our screen in a moment. I'm going to share the picture. So we're going to do this practice. Some of you are already very familiar with this purification practice. Again, I like to do it at the end of the day because all the stuff I've done during the day consciously, I'd like to really minimize any negative practices. And I'm going to share this practice. Mhm. There's different Vajrasattva sadhanas, simple, elaborate. We're going to focus on a solitary Vajrasattva. There is a Vajrasattva with consort, but we're just going to keep Vajrasattva solitary. The more you can envision a crystal light being, okay? And we often start at just like all the sadhanas. Sadhana means method of accomplishment. So it means that through doing this practice, I accomplish enlightenment. And in this case, it's a little bit more geared to purification. That's fine. Okay. But what we often do is we start with the deity in front of us, and then there's standard prayers of refuge, bodhicitta. They're all very much designed similarly. This is quite simple, but this is a practice that the most effective way to do purification is with something called the 4 opponent powers, the 4 opponent powers. And so they oppose negativity in our mind. They oppose delusion arising in our mind. I like to start with regret, the power of regret. Okay. And so this is, it's not an obsessive cycling of guilt in our mind. I did something, I'm horrible. It's mainly I did something that caused some suffering for me or another person. I am deeply sorry that I did it. I can see the pain that I caused someone else. I can see the problem I caused for myself. I feel that. I'm deeply sorry. You could be sorry to the point of tears. Okay. But you have a moment to just bring up, I'm going to ask you to bring up an event. And it's best to do something recently you did with your body, speech, or mind, or all 3 of those things. Or you can also think about all negativities I've done in general since beginningless time. But it's very nice to really focus on something in your mind. That's something that you did recently, right? So first we have this moment of regret, and then slowly feeling that. And then we go into refuge or reliance. So they all begin with R in English is an easy way to remember. So what I'm going to do is my Vajrasattva in the space in front, and I'll show a picture on the screen. Can you please help me? And this Vajrasattva, you'd like to think, is inseparable from the Buddha mind, same as the omniscient mind. This is simply a form that helps us purify. And if you have any particular teacher, you can visualize them inseparable with that particular teacher. The same. And you want to ask, like, is this a source of protection for me from more suffering? This aspect of the Buddha? And can you feel that, a little bit of that connection in your heart of that refuge? You know, this is shelter for me. This is protection for me. Can you help me? I want to do effective purification. Please help me. So we actually have a little refuge prayer we can recite together. Third opponent power is the remedy. The remedy. So what we'll be doing is reciting some Vajrasattva mantras. There's long and short mantras. We're going to try a little bit of the long. It's 100 syllables. Okay. Then if you get lost in that and you want to focus on some visualization, you can do the short mantra like that. But it's very helpful in your own practice. At some point, slowly, you can listen to recordings. It's on the internet. You want to listen to it, slowly listen so you have the right pronunciation. You could listen to recordings of this class, but what you want to do is don't just listen to the recording, learn it, say it out loud yourself, and you'll eventually memorize it. That's what's really powerful. Once you have the mantra down, then you can focus more on the visualization. This way we'll go a little bit back and forth if you need to do the short mantra so you can focus on the visualization, and I will describe the visualization. So there's technically 4 different visualizations like that. You can try to focus on that or focus on one. We'll do some of the remedy like that. Number 4, the 4th opponent power is the resolution. So you're going to make a little commitment to yourself that whatever negativity you're focused on, you're going to refrain from doing that negativity. Please set a realistic time frame to refrain from the negativity. That. So basically, if you say, I'll never get angry again, that's not likely. But if I say, the next time I see that challenging person, you know, for the first 5 minutes I'm with them, I am not going to generate anger. I'm going to try to practice more patience. That's more effective in breaking the negative cycle like that, remedy. And then we do an absorption, everything purified, and then we do a dedication. And that's pretty much the practice. Those are the 4 opponent powers. Again, regret, refuge, remedy, resolution. So please find a comfortable position. This is Vajrasattva, solitary Vajrasattva. So the more you can imagine this radiant crystal being, as if he's really existing in the space in front. And there's different variations of this, but his left hand is sitting in the Vajra position, but the left hand has a bell in it that represents the wisdom realizing emptiness. That's his view. The right hand at his heart is holding a little Vajra, Dorje in Tibetan. So Vajra is, or Dorje is a little thunderbolt symbol that represents our method, bodhicitta. So you have the right view and the right method, the right way, the good heart. And then seated on a multicolored lotus, as you see, which represents renunciation. So the lotus rises out of the swamp untainted by the mud around it when we emerge from our suffering, symbol of that. And he's seated on generally a beautiful white open moon disk. Usually the moon represents relative bodhicitta. Beautiful radiant being. So just imagine him right now. You can close your eyes in space in front, as if he's really there in the nature of light. He's about 6 inches in height, and he's just a few feet slightly higher than the level of your forehead, a few feet in front of you. And let's just recall our motivation for a moment, that how wonderful we have a practice like this to help us purify negativities that we often have done just based on our having a limited consciousness that just has imprints of ignorance in it. We haven't realized emptiness directly yet, but we're working on it. It's a natural state of the ordinary mind. And through this process, can we help us purify the negativity so we can quickly reach enlightenment and therefore benefit all living beings unlimitedly. For that purpose, we'll engage in this Vajrasattva purification practice. As best as you can, feel that intention in your heart. So you're not stuck with the mistakes you made. This is what we can do. Active recovery. So take a moment right now, power of regret. Think of something you may have done today, this past week, something more recent. You messed up with your body, speech, or mind, or all of those things. Feel the regret in your heart. And Rinpoche even has in this practice, just reflect. Almost every action I do 24 hours a day is motivated by worldly concern, which is attachment to the comfort of this life. Think about it. Isn't that our existence? It's natural. And it's like this from birth to death in this life. And it's been like this since beginningless rebirth. Around and around I cycle. So many actions I do have been non-virtuous, the cause of suffering. And having these imprints in my mind, it's unbearable. At times, it's unbearable because it's going to cause me to suffer again and again and again and make others suffer. And it's as if I've swallowed a lethal poison. And if you had, you would practice and take the antidote immediately. So feel this regret. Think of Vajrasattva in the space in front. You might not have much experience yet of Vajrasattva. Think of a particular teacher who has moved you. Think of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, perhaps, or Lama Zopa Rinpoche. Inseparable. All they want to do is help. And if you think of them as a doctor, so if we have a sickness called delusion, confusion, ignorance, could this be a doctor that has the medicine to transform us? Can you take refuge there? And if you'd like, we can recite this refuge verse on the screen 3 times. With Vajrasattva in front of us in mind, I forever take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, in all the 3 vehicles, in the Dakinis, a secret mantra yoga, in the heroes and heroines, in the empowering goddesses and bodhisattvas. But most of all, I take refuge in my holy Guru forever. I forever take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. So I think we're clear on the historical Buddha, Shakyamuni Buddha, and the Buddha, ultimate Buddha Jewel, the omniscient mind. The Dharma are the teachings, the philosophy, and the ultimate Dharma, refuge, are the teachings on emptiness. The Sanghas are spiritual community, like Maitreya Institute, and the ultimate Sangha are the Arya Sangha of those who've had a direct perception of emptiness. In all the 3 vehicles, which is the Hinayana, or individual vehicle, or the Theravadan tradition, the Mahayana, or universal vehicle, Tibetan Buddhism, and other traditions like that, and the Vajrayana, the Tantric path. In the Dakinis, the secret mantra yoga, Dakinis are female skygoers who've had great realizations, practice Tantra. Of secret mantra yoga, that refers to Tantra. In the heroes and heroines are also highly realized beings. In the empowering goddesses and the bodhisattvas, bodhisattvas are like Buddhist saints. But most of all, I take refuge in my holy Guru forever. One more time. I forever take refuge in Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, in all the 3 vehicles, in the Dakinis, the secret mantra yoga, in the heroes and heroines, in the empowering goddesses and bodhisattvas, but most of all, I take refuge in my holy Guru forever. Vajrasattva is very happy to help us and comes to the crown of our head, over top our crown, facing the same direction as us, about 6 inches in height, a radiant crystal being. And imagine at his tiny heart in the center is a little moon disk lying flat. And in the center of the moon disk is his seed syllable Shri. Seed syllable Hung, H-U-N-G. So you can visualize H-U-M or H-U-N-G, it's the same. And you can imagine it in the nature of white light standing upright in the middle of the moon disk at his heart, radiating light. And around the edge of that moon disk is his 100-syllable mantra standing clockwise, like a strand of radiant pearls. And light rays begin to pour out of the mantra garland and the Hung syllable, filling his entire body and emanating through all the pores of his body to the 10 directions. So blessing all sentient beings, but also hooking back and making offerings to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas and hooking back all their enlightened energy. And all of it comes pouring back into the center of his heart, over top your crown. And it fully energizes him. And imagine the light nectar now comes out once again, filling his entire body. And now it kind of explodes out through all the pores and descends down now through our crown, cascading like a radiant waterfall of purifying, healing nectar. Dissolves down through our crown. Our first visualization is all the negativities we've done with our body, killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, all washed down and out through all the lower openings of our body until they're completely gone. We're going to try to do that visualization as best as we can as we recite his mantra. This is the 100-syllable mantra. So feel free to look on the screen if you'd like. And when you're new, these are always a little rusty to get started, and then slowly you learn a new practice. Excuse me. And here, just to give you an idea, what are we saying? Because Westerners always want to know, what does it mean? What does it mean? The mantras means mind protection. It's a protection for your mind. And the other thing, what it does is there's an inner resonance to mantras. There's an inner kind of vibration and things that is almost more important than what's each specific thing. But here's the essence. You, Vajrasattva, have generated the holy mind, bodhicitta, according to your pledge. Your holy mind is enriched with the simultaneous holy actions of releasing all living beings from samsara. Whatever happens in my life, happiness or suffering, good or bad, with a pleased holy mind, never give up, but please guide me. Please stabilize all happiness, including the happiness of the upper realms. Actualize all actions in sublime and common realizations, and please make the glory of the 5 wisdoms abide in my heart. So the 5 wisdoms relate to when you undo and transform a delusion, it turns into a type of wisdom like that. So it's a whole other thing we can talk about, but just know that we're transcending, we're transforming anger and ignorance and attachment and pride and jealousy and all those things being transformed in our mind. So as best as we can, we'll visualize. Now the short mantra, which we'll eventually do, Om Vajrasattva Hong. Om Vajrasattva Hong. So if you get really lost in this, and we're just going to do 3 times together. And again, everything's pouring down and out, now cascading through down and out through the lower openings of our body. All the negativities of the body completely washed away as we recite this mantra. Om Vajrasattva Sammaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Dino Patita Dido Me Bhava Suttokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Sarva Siddhi Me Prayat Sarva Karma Susame Sitam Shriyam Guru Om Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramame Bhuta Vajra Bhava Mahasamaya Sa Ahum Te. So for it to be more effective, you actually need to say the mantra. So you can try that if that's something you'd like to try. Om Vajrasattva Sammaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Dino Padita Dido Me Bhava Sudokaya Me Bhava Supokaya Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Sarva Siddhi Me Prayat Sarva Karma Susame Sitam Shriyam Guru Om Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramame Mudra Vajra Bhava Mahasamaya Sat Ahum Te. Om Vajrasattva Sammaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Dino Padita Dido Me Bhava Suttokayo Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Sarva Siddhi Me Prayat Sarva Karma Susame Chittam Shriyam Guru Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramame Bhuta Vajra Bhava Mahasamaya Sat Ahum Te. Just feel you've definitely purified some negativity of body. And the light and nectar continues to descend from Vajrasattva's heart down through our crown. Our second visualization is moving all the negativities down. And then like when you have dirt in the bottom of a water glass, it comes up and surfaces out the rim. So now coming back up and emptying through all the upper openings of our body, all the negativities we have done with our speech. till they're completely gone. So we're going to do one more mantra like this, focusing on the second visualization as best as we can. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Dino Vadida Dido Me Bhava Sutokaya Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Sarva Siddhi Me Prayakta Sarva Karma Susame Sitam Shriyam Guru Aho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajrama Me Mujra Vajra Bhava Mahasamaya Sattva Aho. So obviously, when we have more time, you can do longer stretches and just feeling you've definitely purified some negativities of speech. Our third visualization, the light nectar descends from Vajrasattva's heart down through our crown, going directly to our heart center where there is a constricted knot of all of our selfishness, self-cherishing, and all the negativities we have done with our mind, completely purified by this purifying nectar. They form again and again, and we continue to purify. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Dino Patita Dido Me Bhava Sutokaya Me Bhava Supokaya Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Sarva Siddhi Me Prayata Sarva Karma Susame Sitam Shriyam Guru Aho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajrama Me Mujra Vajra Bhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahom. Just feel you've definitely purified some negativities you've created with your mind. Covetousness, harmful intent, wrong view. And you could try a fourth visualization. It's a little more challenging. That purifies subtle obscurations to omniscience. So it's a combination of all three visualizations simultaneously. So try your best. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalaya Vajrasattva Dino Vadida Dido Me Bhava Sutokaya Me Bhava Supokayo Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Prasiddhi Me Prayatsa Sarva Karma Susame Sitam Shriyam Kuru Aho Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajrama Me Mujra Vajra Bhava Mahasamaya Sattva Ahom. So take a few minutes just to focus on whichever visualization you'd like, whatever pace you would like. So when we're in a group reciting mantra, we do need to recite this mantra, actually air leaving our mouth, but not too loud to disturb the person seated next to you. You could also do Om Vajrasattva Hong, focusing on a certain visualization. So just try a couple minutes on your own. Om Vajrasattva Samaya Manupalai Vajrasattva Dino Padida Dido Me Bhava Sudokayo Me Bhava Subokayo Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Sarva Siddhi Me Prayat Sarva Karma Sushame Yam Guru Hum Ha 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 Hum Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Vajramamim Vajrabhava Mahasamaya Sa Ahum. The power of resolution. Take a moment to make a dedication, a commitment to yourself, to resolve, to refrain from whatever negativity you were focused on in the beginning for a realistic time period. Vajrasattva is very pleased with our practice. It says, child of the lineage, all your negativities, all your broken vows are now all completely purified. So even if you don't feel you purified everything, feel that you've definitely purified something. In your own practice, if you can, every evening they say it's very helpful to recite at least 21 of the long mantra with the appropriate visualizations. Very, very powerful to do every day. Rinpoche says once you learn the Vajrasattva practice, you're crazy not to do it. Just keeps all those negative things reduced, purified. And imagine now Vajrasattva on top of our crown begins to dissolve slowly from the edges of the visualization, along with the lotus on which he sits, along with the moon disk, and along with the little moon disk, mantra garland, and home syllable at his heart, all dissolve into the center of the visualization, into a radiant crystal drop of light. And imagine that drop comes to our crown, growing smaller and smaller, melting into our crown. And feel the oneness, the union with Vajrasattva's holy body, holy speech, holy mind, and all the blessings. And we are going to dedicate from the Vajrasattva practice and from all of our activities today that we have done from this course. I'm going to turn to the dedication prayers. Let's take whatever merit we've created, whatever positive energy. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for your wonderful attention, for your wonderful questions, for your participation. Thank you to Sylvie, Maitreya Institute, Lizette, everybody that made this possible. And may we invest whatever positive energy and merit we've created to helping us understand more and more of the workings of karma, to understand the mechanism of how everything comes from our mind, is labeled, but comes back to us as truly existent, and not investing and believing in that as much as we do, learning ways to dismantle that view that will help us progress along a path to Buddhahood as quickly as we can, so we can really spend our lives benefiting all living beings perfectly, really helping this planet. May whatever virtue I have collected benefit the teachings in all transmigratory beings. May it especially cause the essence of perfect, pure Losang Drakma's teachings to shine forever. Short mandala offering. So this is like we always have a thanking mandala at the end. This ground anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine as a Buddha land and offer it. May all transmigratory beings enjoy this pure land. Idam Guru Ratna Mandalakam Niratayami. Janju Sencho Rinpoche, Mage Panam Ge Gyurje, E Panyamba Me Pai, Gone Gondu Belwarsho. May the precious Supreme Bodhicitta not yet born arise. May that arisen not decline, but increase more and more. Due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me and all the merits of the 3 times collected by numberless Buddhas and numberless sentient beings, may bodhicitta be generated in the hearts of all sentient beings of the 6 realms, and especially in the hearts of everybody in this world, including all the students, benefactors, and volunteers in the FPMT organization. May it be generated in the hearts of all those who rely upon me, all those for whom I promise to pray, all those whose names have been given to me. May it be generated in my heart and in the hearts of all my family members, those who are living, those who have died. May the bodhicitta that has already been generated increase. Sealing with emptiness. Due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me, the numberless Buddhas, the numberless sentient beings, which are completely empty of existing from their own side, may I, who am completely empty of existing from my own side, achieve the state of full enlightenment, which is completely empty of existing from its own side, and lead all sentient beings who are completely empty of existing from their own side to that state which is completely empty of existing from its own side, by myself alone, who am completely empty of existing from my own side. I fully dedicate all these virtues to be able to train just like the hero Manjushri, who knows reality, and just like Samantabhadra as well. I fully dedicate all my roots of virtue with the dedication praised as the best by all the gone beyond victorious ones of the 3 times in order to have good conduct. For His Holiness the Dalai Lama, long life. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. And the swift return prayers for Rinpoche. Hey, Rinpoche. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, the victorious Losang father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now. Holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings, through explanation and practice, you wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make requests. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the Victorious One's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and from other living beings you suddenly departed to peace, what a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels, and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the Victorious Ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. So may we also dedicate to all the beings in the world who need additional healing right now. May they receive it completely and immediately. For all the wars to be ended immediately on the planet. For all the famine to cease immediately, all the poverty. For all the minds of all the leaders of totalitarian regimes, may their minds be turned and merged instantly with bodhicitta and emptiness. For the great flourishing of all of our Dharma centers, especially Maitreya Institute, and harmony at and among all of our Dharma centers. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming, and look forward to seeing you at some upcoming programs. I hope it was helpful to you. Some help. Anyway, try your best. So don't forget, everything comes from the mind, right? That's the meditation. It doesn't stop here because the class ended. This is the practice. This is what we need to do. Okay, so we try our best.
Thank you.
Lovely to meet all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Venerable.
Thank you. Oh, verbaas me.
So much.
So, Ven Any Miller, thank you on behalf of the center.
Oh, thank you.
It's coming from the center,
Oh.
but also from the mind, I guess. But thank you so much for your inspiring and profound teachings during this weekend. I think all of us have enough food for thought and food for practice as well. So I hope this will benefit. And this is just a small token of appreciation. Thank you
so much. Thank you, my dear. Thank you so much. Sometimes
Looking forward to the next.
Thank you. Yeah, me too. Yeah, no,
Things and-
it's wonderful to meet all of you.
And I was wondering, would it be nice to have a group photo after maybe a few people would like to make an offering and then have a group photo?
Sure, if you'd like, sure.
And
course.
thank you so much, everyone online as well. Hopefully see you again soon in the center.
In the center, if you can, please come.
Thank you. I'd love to.
And if someone would like to borrow a kata like this.
Because
you can
Debbie,
take
where
one from-
are you located?
I'm in Italy.
In Italy, okay.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a
Thank
bit
you.
far.
Happy here.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll just,
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you, my dear. Thank you so much. Thank you for the lovely food. Thank you very much. Very much. Thank you so much. Thank you very much.